Welcome to After Hours. Bill C-51. What is it? How will it affect you? What does it mean to most Canadians? Here to shed some light on this today is Charles Boylan. He's with a working group to repeal Bill C-51. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure, Rhonda. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's my understanding that Bill C-51 has been passed, and as of the end of January, it's more or less in place, and that it sets out to extend Canada's anti-terror laws beyond the legislation that was put in place following 9/11, and that it's there in response to the international jihadist movement who declared war on Canada and its allies because they supposedly despise our societies and the values that it represents. So is Bill C-51 an appropriate response to that, and what is it?
Well, first of all, the bill itself was presented by the Harper government to Parliament on January 28th, 2015. There was some study and discussion about it. Then the various parties split over it, and the vote in the House of Commons was May 6, 2015, and the vote was 183 to 96 to pass it. So it meant that the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, Trudeau and Harper, both supported the bill, and the NDP and the Green Party and the small Quebec parties, the Bloc Québécois and others, voted against it. And it's true that a lot of the official discussion about the bill was related to the name of the bill, which is the Anti-Terror Act 2015. But if you read the bill, study the bill, you find out that, first of all, it's a what they call an omnibus bill. So this means that there are many new bills in it and amendments to many other bills in it, and there's virtually nothing in it about terrorism.
Really?
Yeah, there are very, very few words about terrorists or terrorism in it. You're quite right. This will be the 12th or 13th bill that was passed after 9/11, named after terrorism. But the bill really is about national security. So now we have to look at the features of national security. If you don't mind, I'd kind of like to just run down some of the main features of C-51, which is now formally the anti-terror.
Because you hear Bill C-51, but nobody says this is exactly, these are the major points, these are the talking points, this is what everyone's upset about.
Right on. So our group, for example, was founded in March after we had a chance to digest some of it. And it was just, we just started, we said, no, this is wrong. You know, this is a violation of basic Canadian rights and liberties. And we started protesting. And actually, we've had 59 actions, weekly actions, to go to various SkyTrains with petitions and just to keep the awareness of Bill C-51 alive and keep it in people's consciousness. Right. Because the Liberals did say in the course of the election for October last year that they were going to do some amendments. I'll come to that in a minute, or in a few minutes. But let me just say a little bit about what's in the bill. The most upsetting aspect probably in Bill C-51 is an entirely new act. It's called the Canada Information Sharing Act.
Yes.
Now people would say, and I remember actually the Minister of Defense, now Minister of Defense, his name eludes me, but Jigan, I think it is, Mr. Jigan, who was a lieutenant colonel in the armed forces in Afghanistan. Anyhow, he's now Minister of Defense. And he said, I remember hearing him say in the debate before election, oh, well, we have to have a police force, you know, talking to each other. That's basic. And people think that, oh, information sharing sounds reasonable. You want to get a terrorist. But that's not what this is about. Not at all. Not at all. You would think that it would be about some very finite, particular person they're interested in. Okay, Joe Smith, RCMP, what do you know about him? Vancouver Police, do you have something on this guy? Border Security, do you have something on this guy? Is he linked to terrorism? That's not what it's about, unfortunately, Rhonda. What it's about, really, it's about taking 17 different agencies of the Canadian government and taking the entire database of those agencies.
The entire database.
The entire database. Now you say, okay, so of course it includes all the police forces and RCMP and CSIS and border security and so on and so forth, the local police forces.
Right.
But it includes health services. It includes national revenue. It includes veteran affairs. And it includes not a person, it includes the entire database. And you say, well, why would they be interested in megadata? Well, this is the new conception of the surveillance state. This is the new evolution of a surveillance state. And you'll remember that the National Security Agency in the United States, somebody blew a whistle on them not very long ago. He's now living, the man is now living in Russia in exile. And
yes.
And he pointed out that national security was scooping everybody's data, listening to Merkel and Hollande and whoever else, listening to all these foreign politicians, listening to their cell phones and so on and so forth. And so we are in what is called the Five Eyes. So what are the Five Eyes? The Five Eyes are the United States of America, Great Britain, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia.
Right, okay.
So
why do they call them the Five Eyes?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I guess we all speak English or something. I don't know.
Anyways.
But it's a good question. Maybe five intelligence eyes.
Now, wait a minute. Is this information that these 17 government agencies, are they also open to sharing that information with these other four eyes?
That's right. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what happens. So all that information on Canadians is now shared. So it's this huge scooping of information that is gross violation of privacy rights. Now most legal scholars, like this has completely changed any previous notion of what surveillance or what security is about. It's changed the landscape completely. And legal scholars and constitutional lawyers, of which I'm not one, have all said this is out of the ballpark. So that's the first part to get about this thing. And the thing is that nothing requires individual suspicion under this act. No, you can share information from any of these sources about any person without having any suspicion whatever, not even a hint.
There doesn't have to be some sort of a warrant of some kind?
No, we'll come to warrants in a minute. There is an issue of warrants later on, another aspect of the act. But, you know, everyone, in a sense, is at risk in this.
So Joe Schmo, who lives down the road, you know, all of his personal information in terms of how, not just how much money he makes, but the fact that he has a bleeding ulcer and, you know, that his father maybe was a veteran and that, like, all of this very personal information could be accessed by somebody, not even just within our own country, but outside of our country, another alphabet agency that it just happens to think, well, this person maybe visited a website or...
Yeah, and under much more limited legislation, you'll remember the Arar case, very famous case, or infamous case, where a Canadian citizen was going to Syria through the United States, and the United States held him up as a terrorist suspect through some very unfortunate conversation. In those days, very specific, discrete information about a discrete person going from Canada to the United States with the RCMP talking to FBI, and then he goes to Syria and gets tortured. And then we end up, as taxpayers, paying an $8 or $10 million settlement for him and that whole public inquiry that went on and so on and so forth. So now we're, and just to footnote that point, just on a small footnote, in this new act, nobody can sue the government for malfeasance in this. There'll be no more Arar cases. Thank you very much. So that's that. So that's number one point I would like to make about Bill C-51, is this scooping of a massive amount of database, the Canada Information Sharing Act.
Right.
And it's not about discrete persons who they suspect being terrorists, who they're going to hunt down and have
So
police talk to
you
each other.
don't have to have gone out and bought items that you would buy if you were going to construct a suicide jacket or something. You don't have to do anything that overt, is what you're saying. I mean, you really don't have to do anything at all?
Well, the thing is
order
that
to-
all that information is the information about everybody's in the database.
So they can
So
just
that-
at random
Well,
even.
whatever they do with this, Rhonda, I can't say, but they have the information.
Yeah.
It's a gross violation of privacy. And presumably, if there is somebody that's doing suspicious things and so on, we have police, we have investigators, we have CSIS, we have, and I'm talking pre-C-51, right? We have anti-terrorist laws, 12 of them.
Right.
And people can get caught doing illegal things.
So there are laws in place already to take care of that
Massive
type
laws, 12 of them, just on that front. And plus, it's, criminal activity to go buy explosives or,
Exactly,
to do various
exactly.
things.
So that's already there in place. This is just an overreach
A humongous,
to just harvest all of our information
it's
somehow.
like
So
the
just-
legal scholars say, it's a change in security landscape. We've never been here before. And frankly, we've never had the technology for it until
To
now.
get here,
So
yeah.
so now we have all these logarithms, we have all this massive possibility of sharing information and running stuff through, this. So okay, so I think it's important for people to really grasp that. That's one of the things that got people out on the streets. Remember, in April, May, summer, big demonstrations. I was in several big demonstrations
Yes.
myself. Our group was in several big demonstrations.
There were tables everywhere.
Yeah,
you'd
and
go
absolutely,
petition.
people were petitioning and signing things, and we collected literally hundreds and hundreds of letters to send to the Senate. Hoping against hope that we could talk
Do
reason
something.
into our senators who were preoccupied with other things at the time. However, so a second aspect of the what we still call Bill C-51, it's the Anti-Terrorism Act, but we call it Bill C-51 because people know it by that name, is the no-fly list. Now there is an
Yes.
old no-fly list. That's a 2007 no-fly list. And it's modeled on the U.S. no-fly list. Basically, this no-fly list, you find out about it when you go to fly.
So you could have planned a wonderful vacation with your family. Everything is in place. Your bags are packed. You get to the airport, and for some reason, you're suddenly on a no-fly list, and you can't get on the plane. Is that
Well,
basically how it goes?
that's the old law. The scenario you just described is one I think a lot of us remember when those children were going to go down to Disneyland in Florida with their mom and dad, and the little kids were on a list of some kind.
Yes.
That's
How that happens, I have no idea.
Well, that's the new fly list under C-51. That's called the slow fly list. Let me say a word about the no-fly list first. The no-fly list, supposedly there's some reason for you for you being on it. You find out about it when you get to the airport. You don't fly. Then what happens is you write to the minister and say, I want to get off the list. And if you don't hear from them in 3 months, which you won't, presumably that's your indicator that you need to go to the federal court. In the federal court, the process is so convoluted, it's so strange. It can even be entirely in secret. They don't have to tell you why you're on it, and they don't have to take you off it. That's the old US style no-fly list. And by the way, in the United States of America, that list has been declared by the courts unconstitutional. So by US constitutional law, that no-fly list.
Well, by any standard, really, that should be considered.
Well,
but,
it's
yeah.
got, it's declared unconstitutional. We still have it.
Oh.
It's not been declared unconstitutional. That's one list. But the slow fly list is even more peculiar in the sense that you're not only told about being on it, you're not really allowed, it's illegal to tell you that you're on it. And that's the story about those children. So you'll remember, I think it was at Christmas time. I'm pretty sure it was at Christmas time. It was after the election. And this family, I believe they're of East Indian origin, if I'm not mistaken, And they were all set to fly on a family holiday down to Florida to go to Disneyland, and their kids were on this list. So then this caused a big kerfuffle in the media, and then the government started saying, oh, well, we'll take steps to see that minors and juveniles and stuff can't be on it.
Yeah.
But it shows you the extent to which a kind of sweeping act like this can result in. And so that's definitely a second bad feature of the bill.
And I've heard of, I know in the United States, I've heard of babies popping up on these lists. You know, how can a baby be a terrorist? Like, hello, you know, it's pretty, I mean, you're putting measures into place that obviously the process is not professional enough to even recognize that this is a 2-month-old baby. How can it be on a no-fly list? How can this baby be a terrorist?
Right.
You know.
And then you scratch your head and you ask yourself, well, these guys are intelligence and intelligent people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, they're not dummies. They're smart people.
Right.
So what is the modus operandi? What is the real thinking behind this this fly list business? Let me suggest something to you. There is not a shred of empirical evidence that a no-fly list has interrupted or in any way stopped an act of terrorism on an airplane. Not one that I know of. But what it has opened the door for, this is very insidious, is for recruiting agents for the FBI to spy on communities. And I don't know about Canada, but we definitely know about the FBI. And this is the way that works, Rhonda. Somebody from, say, like you said, one of the suspect lists, Somali or a Syrian or
Afghanistan.
Person. And then he flies home to visit his family, to say hello, whatever, have a holiday. And then he come back to Canada or the United States, and they say he learns he's on a no-fly list.
Right.
So now he's stuck. He's a Canadian citizen or a U.S. citizen, can't come home. So then someone saddles up to him and says, I see it, you're in trouble and all this. Well, why don't we talk about an arrangement? You work with us, and we'll help you get off the list.
I see.
And you can come home. Well, you can see that's pretty powerful blackmail.
Yes, yes.
And we have recorded cases.
That's pretty insidious, you're right.
It's pretty insidious. And so what it does also is that, people in intelligence would argue, well, yeah, but we need insiders, we need people from the community, so we have to...
That's true.
Find some... Yeah, but the thing is, and here's the key thing about all of this, and I'll come back to this point in later in our conversation if we have time, and that is that all of these matters of security, generally speaking, and that they use the terrorism cover for, are matters that relate to political problems, objective, social, economic, political problems. And by converting them into security problems, by converting them into terrorism problems per se, what you do is you stop the people from sorting out in a calm way with information how to sort out objective problems that face our society. I mean, every society in the world has large problems, global warming, rich and poor, but this is not a way to sort those problems out.
But then you also have those people, and I know, like, I can, really just speak for myself, but I can tell you that I do not want somebody who is a terrorist or who is radicalized to be going from Canada over there, getting training or whatever, coming back, committing a crime. I don't want them able to get on a plane. I don't want them to be able to fly and carry out any of these things. And at the same time, I do want our government to be empowered to the point that they can gather a significant amount of information on this person to intervene or to stop them if that's where they're going with this. I don't want to see terrorism in my country. And so you're going to hear that from other people as well.
Of course.
And so
that's the official narrative. That's the official narrative. So like I said, there's been no empirical evidence that the no-fly list has stopped anyone from destroying a plane or committing terrorism on a plane. And moreover, even on the question of the youth who are persuaded that they should intervene in Syria. Now that's a whole another kettle of fish, and maybe we can get back to that after you know, we go through some of the features of the Bill C-51, if that's okay with you.
Sure. The other thing too that I had read was that it actually extends the powers of CSIS beyond being an intelligence gathering agency to an agency that can actually intervene, I guess, in the hopes of being able to stop these terrorists.
Right. So let me deal with two more points about the bill. Okay. So the other thing that has people really upset is a new speech offense criminalization, what they call the promotion of terrorism in general. Those are the exact words, promotion of terrorism in general. So this has, again, the constitutional lawyers and the legal people just perplexed, because what does promotion of terrorism in general mean? I mean, what does it mean? Say for example, well, I'll give you a very concrete example.
It's kind of murky.
It is very murky because, just to give you an example, last night I was at a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Easter Uprising in Ireland. Well, there was a war, there was a civil war, there was a clash between people who wanted an independent Ireland and the British colonial government.
Yes.
So violence was part of that. There was a rebellion, there was a revolution. The United States of America
has had a revolution.
Got its independence. France had a revolution. People have revolutions. So if you're advocating for that kind of overthrow of colonialism, is that part of?
I see where you're going with that.
Is that part of advocating terrorism in general?
So if you don't believe, I don't know. I don't believe that the government should have a right to do such and such, and I want to bring awareness to it, like we are right now with Bill C-51. And maybe, try to get some people together to say, let's do something about having this either repealed or changed or whatever. That could then be seen as spreading terrorism?
Well, there are features in the bill that, for example, speak about disrupting the economic life of Canada. And you say, for example, Indigenous people whose treaty rights are consistently overridden and consistently not followed by the federal government. For example, over Site C Dam, and they say, well, we're going to have a sit-in, or we're going to have a camp here, and we're not going to allow Site C to be built. I mean, it happens to be an irrational project because that riverbed could feed over 1 million people with delicious vegetables. It's one of the most prolific river in the province, next to the Fraser Valley. So would advocacy to block that become then terrorism, advocating terrorism in general? I'm just saying it opens a whole...
We're not saying that it has, but the possibility of it being used for something like that.
Yeah.
To shut people down and to really take all of their power away from them.
On this free speech issue.
Right,
Yeah,
in terms of...
So that's another whole... It's a novel concept in Canadian law, and that's important to grasp. There's just nothing like that in Canadian law.
We just have a few minutes left for this segment, so if you... we'll just hit the last point.
Okay, well, the last point then is the radical reshaping of CSIS, which you just mentioned.
Right.
And that's very important because what they've done, CSIS came into being in June of 1986, or 1984, I think it was, and it came as a result of the MacDonald Royal Commission on RCMP wrongdoing. They had been burning barns and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that came out of the War Measures Act back in 1970. And they said we have to separate surveillance and intelligence functions from policing functions. Now they have allowed CSIS to have intervention to intervene.
To have the power to intervene.
To arrest, to do stuff. And here's the key thing about that is that now, so you have an intelligence force that can go to a judge and ask for a warrant to say it's okay to violate a person's constitutional rights. In other words, the judge is supposed to go listen to CSIS and say, person X, we're going to take action against them, and it's going to violate the constitutional rights. We want a warrant to approve it. Well, this is a complete distortion of what courts are supposed to do. Courts are supposed to protect your constitutional rights, not deny your constitutional rights. And so that's a very dangerous aspect of this Bill C-51. And you can see, if you pile all these things together, you've got a very dangerous mix of that creates a surveillance police state.
A police state, like a prison planet.
Yeah, well, you know, once you give CSIS, which can spy on you and also act against you, and then go to a judge and get permission to violate your constitutional rights, you're looking at a police state. You're not looking at a constitutional police force. So those are some of the main features, Rhonda, of Bill C-51. That's why we demonstrate, and we're having a demonstration on Monday.
And Bill C-51 is right here.
Oh, it's on the books.
But I mean, it's here. But in these other countries, such as Great Britain and Australia, New Zealand, they all seem to be putting
similar laws. Similar laws.
So it's really becoming sort of a global. A global system.
And the classic example, if you want to look at contemporary times, France had this terrible disaster on November the 13th, Friday, November the 13th, in France with the terrorist massacre.
Yes,
they amended the Constitution so that they granted police powers that replaced all the civil rights of citizens. And so the people said, well, you're going to change the Constitution? Yes, we're going to change the Constitution to allow this kind of police power. So there you have it.
And so you have coming up
an action. We have actions every Monday between 4 and 5, short actions, just go to the citizens, and we go to various SkyTrain. Seems to be a good place. And sometimes we do banner hangs, you know, just put the banner over the thing and people honk and wave and stuff like that. And next one is this Monday at Georgia and Granville Street.
And is there a website people can go to for more information if they just want to get involved?
There's a Facebook, you know, and it's Stop Bill C-51.
So if they go to that Facebook page, Stop Bill C-51.
Lots of photographs,
and a lot of information there. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming down. And you know, we've hardly scratched the surface of this subject. So, you know, maybe we should do a part 2. And we hope that everybody else comes and watches part 2 with Charles Boylan. And he is with, your group is?
Working Group to Stop Bill C-51.
There you go. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you.